This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss all the news in the world of sports. As always, my name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
Back here on a Friday, leading you into the weekend, and honestly, it's my favorite weekend, really, of the whole sporting world, because it's the NCAA tournament, man. We had yesterday, we have today, we have the matchups from tomorrow and Sunday, which lead us into the Sweet 16. Yesterday in the tournament, only 2 upsets, according to seeding. So you know what that means. We'll probably have like 10 today.
Right.
So today will probably be like literally impossible to predict. But we'll look at the matchups, talk about some of our intriguing ones. We'll look at some games from yesterday. As I mentioned, the only 2 surprising upsets yesterday were number 12, Middle Tennessee State. They do it again. And then number 11, Xavier. Although that's a little more of a even matchup. Their game over Maryland, Xavier did win. And then Middle Tennessee over Minnesota, although Middle Tennessee was actually favored as a 12 seed according to Vegas. So, I mean, not necessarily according to that, but according to the seedings, we only had 2 upsets yesterday. So every other favorite goes through. I mean, but we had some great games, some great storylines right from the get-go. The first game of the day was number 12, Princeton, and number 5, Notre Dame. And Notre Dame does win this game by 2. But Princeton did have a shot there at the end. They had a 3-pointer that did not go through, so Notre Dame holds on against number 12 Princeton 60-58. But the big storyline yesterday, Anthony, the biggest one, had to be number 8 Northwestern, number 9 Vanderbilt. Northwestern, their first ever trip into the NCAA tournament, and they pull off the victory in kind of, I don't know what I want to call it, like, I want to say Chris Webber-esque, but there was no timeout called.
It was weird, yeah.
Yeah, so Northwestern wins 68-66. So you're probably thinking to yourself, maybe they made a shot at the end, or Vanderbilt missed a shot at the end, which is what happened.
Right.
But the way it happened is where we had sort of the, not controversy, but the kind of the bonehead decision. So Northwestern at the time were up by 1. Vanderbilt scored with about 12 seconds left. And then Matthew Fisher-Davis. He had a great game. He had 22 points in the game for Vanderbilt. But he thought they were down 1 after they scored.
Right.
So he intentionally fouls a kid from Northwestern. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he has ice in his veins. Mm-hmm. Goes down the other way. Makes both free throws to give Northwestern a 1-point lead. And then Vanderbilt, they have some time. They have about 8 seconds left. They pull off I don't know what you want to draw it up as, a LaMelo Ball, a Steph Curry-esque type 3-pointer from 35 feet away and lose the game.
Right. Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm not going to yell so much about people in college and stuff like that. It's like, oh, you're an idiot. Why did you do this? People, miss things, and they just think it's something different. Like you said, he probably just thought the score was different.
Yeah, he said after the game it was a dumb mistake. He thought they were down 1, which... I get things like that happen, but I mean, come on.
Oh, it's terrible.
You gotta be.
It's a terrible time to do it.
Gotta be better than that.
It is the worst possible time to have it happen. Any other time in the game you wanted to do that, to have the brain fart situation. But yeah, I feel bad for him now because, I mean, it's not like Vanderbilt was that good of a team this year. Anyways, 19-16, so it wasn't like they were a Final Four team that this totally derailed them. But at the same time,
according to the seeding, they were supposed to lose this game.
Right. But at the same time, it's just oh, now this is going to follow this guy. Maybe this follows the guy. But, it's still something where it's just for the next week or whatever, he's going to get a lot of stuff for this. And that stinks because, maybe we also forget about it in a couple of days because you said, there wasn't really that many upsets. So maybe today's the day where we have all the upsets. But yeah, like just watching that, it was just like, wait, why? Oh no, this is going to go terrible for him. Like you could just tell, like after it happened, just like, oh, it's like immediately myself, just like I felt like bad. I was like, oh, this is going to come down on him. Oh no! Like once you basically realize that, like he probably, this wasn't any kind of an intentional thing he did. It was just like, oh no.
Oh no, it was intentional. It was an intentional foul. But I mean, not the decision. But like, because I was watching the game. And I was like, oh, okay, they got the ball. Like, this is what the tournament's made of. Let's see what happens now.
Yeah.
And then he goes down, and he did it, like, so casually. It's like he was literally, like you said, convinced that they were down by 1 because he did it so casually. He just fouled. I'm like, wait, did, like, something happen on the other end? Like, one of their players, like fall down or, like, did something happen? Like, why would you intentionally foul?
Yeah.
And then you could tell, like, the camera goes to him, and he kind of looks at the clock, and then he's like, oh crap! What did I just do here? And I hate for it to end that way for Vanderbilt. They were down really, really big in this game. They're down by like 15 at one point, but they're such a good 3-point shooting team. They fought back and they slowly like chipped away at the Northwestern lead in the second half, and then they obviously had the lead. I mean, there was 6 lead changes in the last like 90 seconds, I think. But I think it'll disappear unless Northwestern makes some sort of improbable run. I mean, tomorrow they're taking on number 1 Gonzaga, who won by 20 over South Dakota State, but they were not convincing at all. They're only up by 4 at halftime. They were down for most of the first half. So Gonzaga didn't really, let's say, prove the doubters wrong, like me, that don't think they're really up to par with some of the best teams in college basketball. So unless Northwestern pull off some improbable run where they beat Gonzaga tomorrow, then we're not going to really be talking about this much. But it's a great storyline, and seeing as how this is Northwestern's first ever NCAA tournament game, period, for them to be like the headliner here is, of course, fantastic.
Yeah. No, and I thought I saw sad the other day that basically said, like, as much as we don't like Gonzaga, as far as, like, assuming they're going to make it far, like, we give the benefit of the doubt to, like, a North Carolina or a Duke or something like that. Gonzaga, like, there's only really been one time, and I think it was to Wichita State a few years back, where if they're the higher seed, they win. Like, fine, you might, be the number 3 seed and lose the number 1 seed. Fine, that's going to happen. But, them being the higher seed, that's only been busted one time in recent memory. But we still just assume that they're just, choking dogs, and it's just always going to go bad for them.
Right, so Gonzaga, it's going to be tough out in the West. They're going to be battling teams like Arizona, who won by 18 yesterday over North Dakota. They're pretty much everyone's trendy pick to get to the Final Four out of the West region. But the Gonzaga's never been to the Final Four, so they're a team that's like never really proved the doubters wrong in that regard. I mean, they've gotten close. Remember Adam Morrison crying in the Elite Eight against, I think they're playing Duke that game.
Sounds
I remember they've gotten close, but they've never really like proved us wrong in that regard. So hopefully they can do it. How'd your bracket do yesterday?
Not too bad. 13 out of 16, so that part of it was nice. Like you said, I'm fearful of today, and I'm going to get 5 out of 16.
Only 2 upsets according to seeds. I thought of this right away because I was watching it all night last night. I'm like, okay, tomorrow we're probably going to have like 8 upsets because it's not going to be like this today, only 2 upsets. So, I mean, today's probably going to have some fireworks.
Yeah, there's going to be some literal buzzer beaters at the end. There's going to be a 15 that probably beats a 2, and that's going to look great. You're probably going to have our local team, UC Davis, probably beating the number 1 seed. That's probably going to happen, and that's going to be just all types of historic. And it's like, okay, cool. Now my bracket is dead.
Well, if that is the case, then I'm literally screwed because I have Kansas winning it all.
That's not going to help you at all.
I don't want to put the jinx on Kansas.
Sure.
But I have not had the greatest luck at picking my national champions. Okay, last year I had Michigan State.
They
lost to Middle Tennessee State as a number 2 seed. So Middle Tennessee State winning yesterday. I did have them. I lost 3 games as well yesterday. I lost on Xavier. I picked Winthrop over Butler. Kind of a stupid pick, but you have to go with some of these upsets.
Right.
Say for the hell of it.
Yeah.
And then I went with Maryland over Xavier. And I kind of got hit pretty tough there because I had Maryland in the Sweet 16. I picked them to beat number 3 Florida State, who beat Florida Gulf Coast yesterday. So I got a little bit of a hit there. But I'm really counting on today and Sunday, if they get there, is number 7 Michigan. Because I have Michigan beating number 2 Louisville as well in the second round. So I really need Michigan today and Sunday. I like the hot teams going into the tournament. Michigan, of course, winning the Big Ten. Had this scary situation where they almost had their plane crash and had to wear the practice jerseys for a little bit in the tournament. So I'm going with Michigan to give me a nice little run. So I need the Wolverines to really give me some big games for today and hopefully Sunday. But what other games are you looking forward to today? There's a lot of great ones. I'd say my favorite game I really want to watch is going to be Wichita State and Dayton.
Right.
I've literally been almost pulling my hair out as far as trying to pick a winner for this game. I went with Dayton. I'm kind of regretting that, but I'm not going to change it now. I pick it, and then I don't think twice about it. I'm going with Dayton out of the A-10. I realize Wichita State's one of the best, non-known mid-majors of teams you don't necessarily know players-wise, but you know who they are. Great leadership and experience with Greg Marshall as their coach. I'm going with Dayton, so I'm trying to hope they can get it done, but I honestly expect Wichita State to win. But what game are you looking forward to today most?
So UCLA, Kent State, because I want to see how Lonzo Ball does in the tournament.
His first tournament game?
Yeah, see how...
Yeah, that game's going to be out in Sacramento tonight, so about 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern if you're awake back east.
Yeah, so I want to see that one. I want to see Miami against Michigan State.
I know you're a fan of the U's.
Right, so I want to see how they do, and plus Michigan State's just one of those kind of historically really good college basketball teams, so I want to see how they do with that. I guess I'm just going with the major programs like Kentucky plays tonight. I want to see how they all kind of perform, right? Because Kentucky this year, while they do have some elite players like Malik Monk and Fox, they have not exactly the most well-known players, right? Because that goes with Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, stuff like that. I want to see how, because I'm always intrigued how Calipari's teams do, because he basically just, hits the refresh button every single year and basically,
that's a good way to put it.
He basically just okay, cool, try one more time. And, now they're going to go in the tournament again. He's won the national title, but he's also had some teams that were talented, although young, kind of go out earlier than you thought they would do. So I want to see how not only his team, but himself, how he performs. Like I said, Lonzo Ball, and then the Miami versus Michigan State matchup.
Definitely. So UCLA will take on number 14, Kent State, number 2, Kentucky, battling number 15, Northern Kentucky. You mentioned Miami and Michigan State. That's an 8-9 matchup, so that should be good. I want to look at the Rhode Island and Creighton game as well. Rhode Island's one of my upsets for today. I did pick the 11-seeded Rhode Island to defeat number 6 Creighton. That game's going to be about 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern at the Gold One Center in Sacramento. So I'm looking forward to that game. And then I guess from a local standpoint, I want to look at UC Davis and Kansas. Although I expect the Jayhawks to beat the crap out of UC Davis. It's a great storyline. First ever time in the tournament, they won the play-in game against NC Central the other night, and now they're obviously taking on number 1 Kansas. So that'll be a great storyline. And then real quick before the break, Tom Crean, now the former coach of Indiana, was fired yesterday. Yep. Although Indiana's not in the tournament, they're definitely trying to make themselves relevant as far as getting talked about. Tom Crean being fired after 9 seasons yesterday by Indiana. I felt like Tom Crean, definitely a good, solid coach. But it seems like when he was at Indiana, it's like they were either really good or they were really bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you can kind of look at when you look at his time there in Indiana. Last year they were in the Sweet 16. This year they were one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. So there's just really no consistency. And I feel like that's why he was ultimately let go. But I'm sure he'll get somewhere else. He's a good coach, really passionate. And then Indiana is definitely one of the better college basketball jobs. And really, really still a good school. So yeah, they'll get someone in there. We'll take our first break of the show. After the break, we're going to look at the NBA, the guys who are getting paid to do this stuff. Russell Westrbook, triple-double again. Kevin Love returned actually to the starting lineup for the Cavs last night. How did he do? We'll let you know and more after the break here at the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, welcome back into the show. Real quick before we talk NBA, want to just mention the matchups for tomorrow. So number 5, Notre Dame will take on number 4, West Virginia. Number 8, Northwestern will take on number 1, Gonzaga. Number 12, Middle Tennessee State taking on number 4, Butler. Number 5, Virginia battle number 4, Florida. Number 8, Wisconsin will take on number 1 overall, Villanova. Number 11, Xavier will battle number 3, Florida State, for a trip to the Sweet 16. Number 7, St. Mary's will take on number 2, Arizona. And number 5, Iowa State will take on number 4, Purdue. So definitely some good matchups tomorrow going into the round of 32. Now let's talk about the NBA. First of all, Chicago Bulls forward Dwayne Wade is going to be out for the rest of the regular season with an elbow fracture. The Bulls, of course, battling in the playoffs here. He said it wasn't the worst-case scenario. It's not a good scenario, but kind of what I thought. I told him I heard a pop, and all of a sudden it was pretty much like a dislocation, and then I went back in time, so I kind of dealt with the aftermath of what it looks like. So it is what it is. He, of course, had this injury when playing the Memphis Grizzlies on Wednesday, so D. Wade out for the rest of the regular season for Chicago Bulls. He's not really having the greatest season in his homecoming back to Chicago, and really the Bulls are in general. A lot of people thought they'd be a lot better with Rondo, Butler, and Wade, but hasn't really worked out for them. But nevertheless, they still do have a shot. They're still going to be in the playoffs. So Kevin Love returns back. When I heard this yesterday, starting, I was really surprised. Of course, hasn't played in about 5 weeks, had the knee surgery. He goes right back into the starting lineup, not coming off the bench or anything. He did only play 20 minutes, so limited action, but not a bad performance. 10 points and 9 rebounds. Shot 5 of 9 from the field as well. Yeah,
he's just trying to ease him into the situation. Like, yeah, he's starting, but it's also not like he's playing like 35 minutes. It's kind of one of those things where just get his legs under him. You know, there's no playoffs for a couple of weeks, so he doesn't have to necessarily go super hard. You're like, okay, you got to get your conditioning and you got to get your stamina in. Let's go. No, he can kind of just, like I said, 20 minutes. I was still going to rely on Kyrie and LeBron a lot more. Now that they have him back, now they're just kind of waiting on J.R. Smith to kind of fully wrap like everything up and get everybody 100% healthy, because even though J.R. did play last night, it's still something where like they're not fully cohesive, right? Like they got to get him back as far as like mentally and physically and everything good, and Kevin Love, same thing. So now they're at least starting that process, but they're not fully relying on him. They're relying on JR a little bit more, but JR has been in the lineup a little bit longer. Like they're slowly bringing him back, and they're slowly bringing Kevin Love back. So give this a couple of weeks, assuming nobody else gets hurt, and you'll start to see the team the way we all pretty much figured it would be back when the season started.
Exactly, and I did not mention, but the Cavs won over the Jazz 91-83. LeBron had 33 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. You mentioned J.R. Smith. He was 4 of 10 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3, had 12 points in 30 minutes. So like you said, just trying to ease his way back in, and I think that's a good decision. I was just surprised that they started him right away.
Sure.
I feel like he would have just been more suited coming off the bench and playing 20 minutes, and especially in crunch time. Only went by 8. It was a close game all the way. They were actually tied going to the fourth quarter. So I figured they would have maybe brought him off the bench and got him ready for the end of the game, but that wasn't really the case. But the Cavs do obviously win, improve to 45-22, still number 1 in the Eastern Conference. And now we'll move on to your boy, Russell Westbrook. Honestly, he had probably the best assist you're ever going to see last night. Mm-hmm. He's like literally at half court. It's like a overhand bounce pass. He nutmegged a guy, goes through his legs, right to Victor Oladipo, who gets the layup. Russ had 24 points, 16 assists, and 10 rebounds, 8 of 17 from the floor, 4 of 8 from 3, 34th triple-double of the season. He's actually on pace now to have more triple-doubles in a season than the big O Oscar Robertson, also on pace, of course, to still average a triple-double. And according to like the percentages and everything, he's probably going to do it unless he gets injured or something just crazy happens. So your boy gets it done, and they beat the Raptors by 21, 123-102.
And he's doing better things, right? So back when he had his 58-point game, right, and it was like he's taking 39 shots, and everybody was just like, oh, he's a ball hog because it went from 39 shots to the next guy who had 9. He slowly brought that back down to earth, right, as far as like the amount of discrepancy between him and other players when he plays, because, the night after that, he had 26 shots. The next closest had 15. Then after that, he had 21 shots, 18 shots, 17 shots. So he's kind of reining it in a little bit, and he's trying not to be as much of a ball hog, starting to, I don't know if trust his teammates is the right word, but he probably understands that he can't just go, full 1-on-5 and win these games. And like he said, 16 assists. So he's, basically, he's going to average triple-double. Like you said, unless he gets hurt. But if he gets hurt, then he's definitely going to average triple-double because he's going to be through 70 games in the season. It's just going to stop, and he's going to get this.
I'm saying, like, if he gets hurt but plays through it, like something that lingers on that affects him.
Right.
Like, that's the only way. Because you're right. I mean, when Westbrook literally gets triple-double, the Thunder win 82% of the time.
That's insane.
When he doesn't, they win 32% of the time in games where he's not getting a triple-double. So it's literally like, okay, you have a triple-double. Oh, we're getting the W tonight.
Right.
You don't, okay, we're just going to lose. So.
And the MVP race between the people who are in that race right now is, like, I understand, like, there's been good races in the past, but I mean, like, you have these people who are just, all of them either at the peak of their powers or towards the tail end of the peak of their powers, like LeBron James. Like, LeBron is still having a freaking fantastic year. Like,
he's averaging a career high in assists. He's almost got 9 a game, 26 points. I mean,
8 rebounds. Like, he's still amazing. James Harden's doing everything he can to get the Rockets in the high seed. Kawhi Leonard's maybe the best defensive player I've ever seen in my life. Like, even Isaiah Thomas, all 5'2" of him, he's basically winning games for the Celtics.
He's kind of, and like, no pun intended because he's short, but like, he's kind of been like the forgotten man now, because it was like, oh, Isaiah Thomas, everything he's doing in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, look at what LeBron's doing. Like, and then Kawhi had his moment a couple of weeks ago when he scored and then blocked James Harden at the end. It's like, depending on your mindset as far as what you look at as valuable or who you look at as valuable, the award is wide open, which we have not had in forever.
Yeah.
So I guess that's good. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing that we have that, just as kind of a way of making people, like, care about this in a certain way, because, like I said, we started going to the season, it was just like, oh, Cavs, Warriors, this is going to be the finals. This regular season, why do we even watch it? This isn't going to be any fun. This has been one of the most fun regular seasons. Forget about Russell Westbrook and averaging a triple-double and all the pettiness between him and Durant and everything like that. You've got the fact that Kawhi Leonard took another step, which we didn't think he could actually do. You got Isaiah Thomas becoming the probably best player he could have been coming out of the draft. You have, like I said, James Harden, who has had so many, like, peaks and valleys in the NBA where it's just like, oh, he's a really good backup player for the Thunder. Okay, now he goes to his own team. Oh, but he's kind of boring to watch. He just kind of, like, runs into the lane, throws his arms up, gets fouled. Then he had the thing where he almost quit on the Rockets in the playoffs that year when they almost lost to the Clippers. But then they came back and won the series. Then they had a bad year last year, and now they're having a resurgence this year. Like, he's had so many, like, up and downs. And just this whole season, amazingly, has been one of the most fun, in recent years.
Definitely, and I'm really excited. I still say my MVP is James Harden for everything the Rockets have done and everything he's kind of molded into, because he's really changed his game a lot with the addition of D'Antoni as the coach. But you can't argue against Russ, especially when he averages triple-double.
Yeah.
LeBron is putting up probably his best season of his career. Kawhi Leonard, I feel like he'd be a bigger superstar if he wasn't so boring. I honestly do.
If we knew what his voice sounded like.
If he wasn't so quiet and so boring, I feel like he'd be even a bigger star than he already is.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Thomas is having his best season of his career, so it's literally wide open, which is obviously great. One guy who's the 2-time defending MVP, which will not be a 3-time defending MVP, is Steph Curry. The Warriors have been kind of struggling and going through a little bit of a funk lately, but it didn't happen last night against the Magic. They won by 30. They won 122-92. Steph is still struggling from behind the arc, only 2 of 7, but he did have 25 points, shot 8 of 15 as a whole, not too bad. Klay Thompson, 29 points, 12 of 20. So the Warriors slowly working their way back into a good winning system without KD. Or it might have been the fact that they played the Orlando Magic, who are 24-45. So not the greatest of records there. But we'll take our last break of the show. After the break, we're going to talk about NFL news. We got a lot of compelling storylines. Raiders making some moves. The Cowboys are losing defensive backs. And Adrian Peterson is officially done in Minnesota. All that and more right after the break at the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
All right, so real quick, before we talk about American football, I want to talk about world football. Anthony, I know this is literally irrelevant to you.
Irrelevant seems strong, but okay.
Well, I know this is not your thing. This is my thing. The soccer thing is my thing.
Fair enough.
We had the last 8 draw, the quarterfinal draw of the Champions League, which is basically, think of like the NCAA tournament for like soccer teams in Europe. So you have like the best like 32. They have like pool play, goes to the round of 16, and then have like a home and away matchup, 8, 4, 2, and obviously 1.
Okay.
So we're down to the last 8, and quite honestly, these matchups are just like making me so excited. It's going to be played April 11th and 12th is the first leg. So think of it as like a series. You play at home, and then I play at home, and whoever has the most goals combined wins. And the tiebreaker's away goals. So Juventus, which is the best team from Italy, taking on Barcelona. Of course, everyone knows about them. Then you have Bayern Munich, who's the best team from Germany, taking on Real Madrid, who are like basically the second best team in the world and are actually defending champions of this contest. This is basically like the best 4 teams in the world, and they're matching up in the quarterfinals against each other. Like, that is absolutely fabulous. And then you have Dortmund, who's a good team from Germany, taking on Monaco, the leaders in France right now, and they have 84 goals through 29 games. So they're just scoring like rampant. They had a great matchup against Manchester City from England on Wednesday. And then you have Atletico Madrid, who's from Spain, against Leicester City, who are the golden boys of England from last year, and really just this tournament now, because they're doing so poor in the Premier League, but yet they find themselves in the last 8 in Europe. So really surprising there. But I'm really excited. April 11th and 12th is the first leg. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And if you want a more in-depth look at that, listen to the GSMC Soccer Podcast with me on Mondays. Going to preview these matchups as well. So now we'll transition over to American football. A lot of good storylines. The Raiders making moves and making possibly a move for the future. They are going to be picking up former Packers tight end Jared Cook. It's a 2-year deal. So a nice little addition there. It was rumored that they were maybe going to go after Martellus Bennett, and then ironically, he's at the Packers now.
Right.
And now Cook, who was on the Packers, is in Oakland. So a good pickup there for Derek Carr and company. But now there's reports coming out, according to Adam Schefter, among others, that the Raiders are strongly considering acquiring retired running back Marshawn Lynch, either through trade or by his release, if he decides to want to come back.
Right.
And, of course, he's from Oakland. He's from the Bay Area, went to Cal. He's not even that old. He's only 30 years old. Retired early, although running backs, once they hit like 30, it's kind of like that downward spiral from there.
Yeah.
But he's still technically a member of the Seahawks. So if he obviously came out of retirement and went to Oakland, they have to work out something, like I said, a trade or they release him. And obviously they don't need Marshawn Lynch. They have a zillion other running backs. Eddie Lacy, C.J. Prosise, Thomas Rawls, Alex Collins. They had a visit with Jamal Charles.
Right.
So they have a million other running backs. So they would not, of course, have Marshawn Lynch. But we saw this last year, right? Like, oh, maybe Marshawn Lynch is coming out of retirement, and now he's maybe going to Oakland. I just don't buy it.
No, Marshawn's done. Marshawn doesn't want to play. Marshawn had his fun, did whatever, got a Super Bowl ring, probably should have gotten the second one. He's out. Like
I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, he is, last year, everyone's like, and if he was going to come back, he would have come back next year with the Seahawks when they were having a really bad year running the ball. Like, at that point, I'm sure Pete Carroll probably called him, or Sherman called him, or someone called him. It's just like, look, can you please just come back? And he's like, no, man, I'm done. So I don't know why he would now come back and go to a different team, right? It's one thing if you come back and go to your own team that you know the system, you know what to do. You go into a new system in Oakland, and now you're going to be relied on basically to be the guy, right? To basically like make up for the fact that it doesn't seem that they have confidence in their running backs because they're going after all these older players like Peterson and himself. Like, you're going after these guys who at one point were one of the best in the game, but you also now are probably going to make them the number one back, which doesn't show a lot of confidence in Washington or Richard. But I would love Marshawn Lynch to come back because he was one of my favorite players.
He's always definitely fun to watch. Whether it be his interaction with the media or the commercials or his play. I mean, the Bear Grylls, Surviving in the Wild episode. If you have not watched that, you literally have to. It's must-see TV.
Yep, and go watch him when he's being interviewed by, I think it's 60 Minutes or something like that. And, he's talking about him. He's basically saying, if you keep running at a guy over and over and over again, they're not going to want to take it. And then the guy's trying to be oh, is there a metaphor? No, just run through a mother face. He's totally blunt and honest, and
exactly. That's what I love about Marshawn. I'm a Cal football fan. So I've, of course, followed Marshawn since his days at Cal. I mean, stealing the little medical cart and driving it around against Washington. And I mean, obviously, he's one of my favorite players. And then when I heard this story as well, I was oh, it makes sense, Oakland. But then it's well, how much longer are they even going to be there? Because it's the whole Vegas, now that Bank of America's backing the move to Vegas, it looks like it's probably going to happen again. And the vote's coming up about a week and a half from now. So it's well, how much longer are they even going to be in Oakland? It's I don't think that really makes sense anymore. And
also the fact that he's been out of it for a year now. It's one thing if you were to come back after an off season and you go to a new team. Okay, that's fine. He's been gone for an entire offseason, and when he retired, he was good, but it wasn't like he was back in 2012, right? So you take all these things into consideration, and I don't understand why he would come back outside of just, being the whole thing of oh, I have the itch, I want to come back, I miss football kind of thing. And Marshawn doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would, once he says he's done and made peace with it, he's not reversing that decision. No amount of money, no amount of peer pressure is going to make him do that probably.
Definitely, and of course we're talking about the Raiders needing a running back because Latavius Murray, who was their back last year, of course went to Minnesota as a free agent yesterday, and then Minnesota, the GM, Rick Spielman, he's making some definitely some interesting and some hot takes about the running back situation. With them bringing in Murray, it's a 3-year deal with $15 million, but they can of course get out of it after 1 year, so not too bad. And Murray's hasn't been the greatest running back. I feel like he benefited some from the O-line last year in Oakland, but he's not terrible. He's a solid running back. And I think with Minnesota, it's a good move because he's a lot younger, but they need to address that O-line because that was just literally poor last year, and that was the one thing that held them back because they started off 5-0, defense was great, and then it's the whole rails just fell off, and that's because the O-line couldn't block anyone. So it's they need to really just address that now that they have a running back. But nevertheless, Rick Spielman definitely taking some hot takes as far as Peterson is concerned. He said, with us signing Murray, Adrian will move on elsewhere. Adrian is probably going to go down as one of the greatest Minnesota Vikings in team history. He'll always be a Viking. I know to the fans and the people in this building, he will always have a special place in the franchise. And we were very fortunate that we were able to have Adrian Peterson spend most of his career as a Minnesota Viking. But he said he's done. They're not even going to think about bringing him back. Where does he go from here?
I hope Oakland. I just want him to be on a team that makes the playoffs. That's all I want. A good team that makes the playoffs. Not you were on the Titans or something like that. Well, not the Titans because I don't think he would do that. But, just go to...
I feel they can make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, but I'm a team... I guess I'm saying a team that would make it and go far.
Right.
Because, I would like to see him at least play for a Super Bowl because he only had really one opportunity with that, with the Favre team that ended up throwing an interception late in the game against, I think it was New Orleans.
Yes, that's the year the Saints won the Super Bowl against the Colts.
Yeah, so I would like to see him do something like that, just kind of get one last shot at making the Super Bowl because he's been, him or LaDainian Tomlinson, the best running back in the last probably 15 years. And just kind of see him get one last stand with this whole thing, him being in the running back realm, an advanced age, get 1,000 yards and basically have just one more opportunity to be the guy on a team that's good and making the playoffs and go from there, which the Raiders seem like they would be, especially if that offense kind of clicks now with Jared Cook. You still got Amari Cooper, you still got Michael Crabtree, Derek Carr is going to be healthy by the time the season starts. I would like to see them just go and see what they can do with that whole entire offensive group together.
Definitely, and I said that a couple weeks ago. I feel like the Raiders would be a good spot. The Giants seem to bring in a lot of veteran guys. They brought in Brandon Marshall already.
Right.
They could use a running back. And then the dark horse out there is still New England. LeGarrette Blount's not coming back. They still have James White and Dion Lewis, which are kind of like the receiving backs out of the backfield, like the scat backs.
Which isn't what Peterson does anyways. He's never been a receiving back.
And neither did LeGarrette Blount. So I think that's why it kind of would make sense for him to go there, although he's 32 now. Injuries the last couple of years have not been kind to him. So it would make maybe some sense, but I felt like if the Patriots were going to do that, it probably would have happened already. But now let's look at something else that happened before the break. I guess it would be before the end of the show, really. So before we end the show, the Seattle Seahawks making some headlines yesterday. They said that Richard Sherman would be up for grabs for the right deal. Any serious offers. And honestly, if I was a GM, I would feel the exact same way as far as any player. I don't care who it is. Russell Wilson, if you're giving me first-round picks for the next 10 years, sure, I'll trade Russell Wilson. You know what I mean? Like, no one is literally off grabs for any sort of deal. Obviously, that situation, like I said, with Wilson is not going to happen. But literally no one would be off limits. And that's the way I'd kind of run a team. That's how I run my fantasy football team. Like people are like, oh, would you trade? I'm like, sure I would if you give me blank, 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 and blank. But, so, like, you're saying that Richard Sherman will be up for grabs for the right deal. What you consider the right deal, I don't really know. I mean, the guy's a former fifth-round pick. Still an exceptionally good cornerback. Really, really outspoken, though. And I'd say more so this year than any other year. Issues with the media, stuff he says about Roger Goodell. I feel like Seattle's kind of, like, getting tired of it. You know what I mean? Kind of like, okay, like, we heard this already. Like, can you just, like, focus on playing? Like, we're kind of done with you talking like this. Like, kind of maybe thinking about moving on past Richard Sherman.
But he's not the only one on the team, though. You got Michael Bennett also, who does the same kind of thing and probably stronger than Sherman. It's just Sherman kind of, you know, says it and kind of goes away to where Michael Bennett seems to, like, enjoy putting his, like, face into the buzzsaw and just come back with, like, oh, you got questions? I got more. Exactly.
And same thing with Martellus Bennett, his brother, which is why I'm kind of surprised Green Bay did sign him, because the Packers are kind of, like, anti things like that. Like, they stay away. They're in Green Bay for a reason, because they're away from everybody. They're not, like, being known for things like that. So, but anyways, Richard Sherman might be available for the right price. What you consider the right price is kind of up to you. I don't know, maybe like a first-rounder. You know what I honestly expect here? And I was talking to you about it on the break.
Yes, you did.
And I'm going to make just a really bold prediction, because I feel like I would not be shocked if it happened. The New England Patriots, if Malcolm Butler does go to the Saints, he's a restricted free agent. They brought in Stephon Gilmore. He's definitely upset. If he goes to the Saints as a restricted free agent, the Patriots can either match that offer or they can get a first-round pick in return. They would have another first-round pick. They've already won this offseason by trading to get Brandon Cooks, who literally fits their mold as a receiver perfect. He's a younger version of Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola and Welker and all these guys they've had. They traded for Coney Ealing, who's a good pass rusher. They re-signed Dante Hightower. They signed Stephon Gilmore. They've already won this offseason. They're going to have probably another first-round pick if Butler decides to go to New Orleans. They give up a first-round pick for Sherman. I honestly would not be shocked.
If that happened, then I feel like everybody in, like, Twitter land and all around NFL circles would just be like, so he went to the Patriots, the team that he lost to. He went to them. Now they have two great cornerbacks, and they have Brady, and they have okay, we quit. Like, people would just be like so mad at it, because it'd be one of those things of just like, you took still one of the top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL and you put him on a team that has a really good offense. That's what you decided to do. Okay, why did the league allow this? Like, they would just start yelling at the league. It's just like, how did you, like, just say no to them? Like, or other teams, they would just start yelling at the Seahawks. It's just like, why are you getting rid of people? Why are you helping them out? Because in one way, which I didn't even think about, you talked about how his beef with Goodell, he'd fit in perfectly in New England with that.
With Gronk and Brady and the whole rest of the town.
Oh, you hate him? I hate him too. Hey, friendships.
Exactly. And you know what? It would be basically like Darrelle Revis was. Like, because you look at Revis, he had a huge drop-off last year. Revis is 31. Sherman's 38. 3 years in the NFL is kind of a lot, but it's really not. So it's like Sherman has maybe a year or two left at a really high level. Then they'll probably start to see some decline. The Patriots will be like, oh, we'll keep him for a year. maybe another year, and then we'll get rid of him. And then it's like, oh, Sherman's a free agent. I can't believe New England did that after they win 2 more Super Bowls in a row and 3-peat.
New England's,
it's like, oh, they were really smart because he's kind of dropping off now.
New England's really good. Like, they did it with Revis. They literally,
right? They had him for a year. Like, okay, goodbye. And
they didn't do the thing where it's just like, literally the next year he's terrible. Like, he still had a good year with the Jets the first year. It's just the second year he came back with the Jets. It was just like, oh no. And it doesn't matter who they get rid of, man. Like, they just keep refurbishing, old stuff that they have, or just getting new players and just making whatever they have work. Like, it doesn't matter. And now I don't think, like, if he does go to New England, which, God, that's a part of my anarchy self loves that, just because it'd be like, oh, you're going to basically make an all-star team. Okay, cool, great, let's see how this goes, kind of a thing. Also, they would have some type of a scouting report on Sherman to where they were just like, oh, yeah, we think he's still good, or we think he's bad. Because that's one of the probably the biggest help, like one of the biggest things for Gilmore was that the Patriots saw him twice a year, and they're probably just like,
they know who he is.
Yeah, they're like, oh, no, we should probably take him. He burns us all the time. Like, we need to get him. Like, we need to make sure he doesn't go anywhere else. Like, he made us look bad a couple different times a year. We need to basically have him because it's better to have him than to go against him every year. So if they get Sherman, they're probably thinking he's still a good player, even if it's only for 1 year, like you said.
Right, and I would not be shocked. Like, I'm not going to go out here and say it's for sure going to happen. Everyone said that Brandon Marshall was going to go to New England. That didn't happen. But it's like, I would not be shocked because they literally, this is what they do.
We basically just say every good player that you've heard of in the past is going to go to the Patriots. Adrian Peterson, like you said. I'm surprised they haven't even mentioned Tony Romo as a possible replacement. It's just a backup quarterback just in case. Like, they trade away Garoppolo, they bring in Tony Romo as a backup, just waiting for Brady to get old.
Right, and I don't know, man. This is just what New England does. And then, real quick, we're going to end the show, but the Cowboys are losing pretty much everyone from their defense.
Right.
The offense is great. The line's great. Elliott, Dak Prescott.
But even one of the linemen, he's gone now.
Yeah,
Free.
Doug Free retired. Yeah. So they do have to fill in one of those 5 spots. But the secondary is already not that great, but now it's literally a dumpster fire. The Cowboys have already lost Barry Church for the Jaguars and J.J. Wilcox for the Buccaneers. Morris Claiborne's a free agent. Looks like he's going to go to the Jets possibly. Yesterday, Brandon Carr signs with the Ravens, 4 years, $24 million. That's 4 members from the Dallas secondary gone from the team that was there last year. Maybe they're just going to win 50-42 every game now. They're going to be like the Saints.
Yeah, but the Saints don't win. The Saints,
their defense was already not good last year. I feel like Sean Lee literally was the glue to keep everything together.
And you got your full season from Sean Lee, which doesn't happen.
Right. It hasn't happened in 3 years, and there's no guarantee it's going to happen this year either.
Right.
So, Cowboys definitely are feeling the effects already of knowing that they're going to have a franchise QB for the next 15 years and a franchise running back for the next 10 to 12. Right. Because they're already letting all these guys go knowing that they're going to have to sign Elliott and Prescott to big, big contracts in 3 years.
Yeah, but that's what you're supposed to do when you have the good value quarterback and the good value running back, is you basically build everything around them, because then
they're doing the opposite.
Right, and then what, because that, if you like what the Seahawks did, you had the Legion of Boom, and then you had Russell Wilson, who was really cheap. You do like what the Ravens did, you had that good aging defense with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and everybody else, Haloti Ngata. And then you have Joe Flacco, who was cheap. Then once Joe Flacco won the Super Bowl, then he got paid and everybody went away. But that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have the quarterback who's cheap. You're supposed to have good skilled players for cheap, and then you pay kind of the veterans to kind of round it all out. Yeah, they're basically just we're going to have to sign them later. We're going to have to get rid of all these people. No.
Start now.
Yeah, just starting right now, which, they won the division last year, and it is a tough division, everyone in there. The Giants look like they're better now with Brandon Marshall. Washington, even though they got rid of some of their good skill players, they basically, got Terrell Pryor, and Cousins is still a really good quarterback. I don't like him as much as you do, but I still think he's probably hovering around top 10 in the NFL, and even the Eagles can make another, step next year if Carson Wentz gets become a better player. So there's no guarantee that the Cowboys, even though their offense is really good, will have anywhere near the success they did last year and make the playoffs.
It's really good points, and especially if they can't defend anybody, because that offense might be fantastic, but we saw in the playoff game against the Packers, the offense got off to a slow start, and that's what ultimately lost them the game.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, we'll have to wait and see, but the Cowboys, I don't want to say slowly falling apart, but at least the defense is, so. That's going to end the show for today. Another great episode on St. Patty's Day, March 17th. Got to wear your green and everything. If you're going out tonight, it is Friday, so you have obviously some fun, but be safe. Don't do anything stupid.
Right.
We are going to be back on Monday talking a lot of college basketball. We'll have our Sweet 16 matchups set. We'll probably preview those on Thursday. We'll definitely recap what happened this Saturday and Sunday, and even today as well on Friday. So that'll be great. My name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
We'll see you on Monday. Have a good day and have a good weekend. Goodbye, guys.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.